So we are now in the left flank position of the Royal Northumberland Fusiliers. And as one of the Glosters said, if the Chinese had had an armoured division, they could have driven it between the Glosters and the Fusiliers. There were vast gaps in the British front. And against an enemy skilled at infiltration tactics, this was a really bad deployment. Anyway, so this hill we see up here, and it's an extremely long hill, was held by X-ray Company of the Fusiliers. And this company, like many of the Glosters, was taken under fire and then was assaulted by massive Chinese forces on the first night of battle, April 22nd. One of the most extraordinary figures of the Battle of the Imjin River was fighting just at the top of this re-entrant. His name was Derek Kinney, and he was an extremely unorthodox soldier. He had already done his national service in the UK and hated every minute. He said he spent more time in the military prison than he did doing anything else. And when he left the army, he was told by the Sergeant Major, "Kinney, you'll never make a soldier, don't ever come back." Then the Korean War broke out, and Kinney's brother was killed in action in fighting in North Korea. So Derek said, I decided to go to Korea to try and find my brother's body and to take out as many enemy as I feasibly could. He achieved one of those ambitions. And so he was up here. He was a big lad, big strong man with a Bren gun. And as the Chinese waves came in, he said, I was just sweeping them and mowing them down. And many soldiers, frankly, do find battle exhilarating, and Kinney was one of those. He was the kind of guy who would do a day patrol, then volunteer for a night patrol, would double up on the ammunition, would double up on grenades, and he proved an extremely deadly, dangerous man with a Bren gun. And he said, generally he was enjoying the battle, and they seemed to be holding their ground, but of course what he didn't know was that his neighbouring platoon had been overrun. The position had been dislocated. There literally weren't enough men to hold. So the guys were forced off the hill, down onto the track, and were told to move back towards the main brigade position. And many of the troops on this hill who did that had some hair-raising adventures, because as they were sort of creeping past this hilltop in the darkness of night, an entire Chinese battalion, about 500, 600 men, were squatting down in the paddy fields behind this hill, getting a briefing from an officer as the Chinese moved deeper and deeper through and into the British positions. And so the Fusiliers literally tiptoed past them, and most of them weren't seen, weren't caught. So this position was now compromised, and this was hugely problematic for the Glosters. The Glosters' right flank company could see the left flank company of the Fusiliers had been overrun, because when the Chinese took a position, they'd shoot up a series of white very lights. And the Glosters out to the west said, when we saw the Fusiliers being overrun, we knew we were in trouble. We were now cut off from the rest of the brigade. Our next stop is we're going to move down the road, what used to be a dirt track, to the main brigade headquarters. Join us.